Hello friends, welcome back to another video on this channel. Thank you so much for being here. I always say the same thing, but it has to be said. Thank you so much for hitting the like button on the videos that you enjoy, for leaving your lovely comments down below. I truly do love going through all of them. And for hitting the red subscribe button, which by the way, if you haven't hit the red subscribe button yet, join the femininity revolution by doing that, because I would love to have you here in our sisterhood. If you follow me on Instagram, you'll notice that a couple of weeks ago, I posted a Q&A little boxy thing where I asked you to ask me some of your questions related to pregnancy, homemaking, femininity, anything else that you were curious about. So today, that is the video that we are going to be tackling. I'm going to go through as many questions as possible, as many as my pregnant self can handle, because even sitting in this chair in the third trimester, wow, I am a little bit out of breath and it's a little bit uncomfortable. But I have the mission to put out as much content on the list of topics that I want to go through on this channel before I have my baby. So I'd really love to try to get through as many questions as possible. I'm either going to put fancy tabs here, or I will put them down in the description box to kind of lay out the different questions that I'm going to go through. So if you're interested in only knowing about a particular topic, see those tabs. The first question that I got asked a couple of times was, what is the goal of this YouTube channel after I have our son? I've mentioned here and there that I will probably anticipate taking a little bit of a break. You know, I want to get adjusted to being a mom. I really liked the fact that I was forced into a break in my first trimester. I did not plan on taking time off of YouTube at all, because I wanted it to be a surprise for all of you that I was pregnant. So I wanted it to seem as though I had everything still together. But unfortunately, the way that the first trimester kind of unfolded with my anxiety and everything, if you haven't seen my video on my pregnancy announcement, I go into it a little bit more in depth there. So I'm going to link that above as well as down below. But the point is, I don't want to promise anything and then physically be kind of put in a situation where I have to take a break after I have the baby. So I'm probably just going to come out and tell you right now that I will be on a little bit of a hiatus, at least for a couple of weeks. I really want to maximize the time of being a mother, of being a stay-at-home mom with a newborn, because it is something that we have tried so long to have a part of our life, and I don't want to miss any of his baby moments. Even this morning, I've been so emotional lately that I was thinking about him as a baby. After I woke up, I was just like laying in bed thinking, and I started crying. So I really don't want to feel as though I'm missing out on any part of his life. Going off of that, a couple of people have asked me what my plans are for introducing our son to you all on this channel, or like how I'm going to include him. And I have to say that my eyes have been opened over the past couple of years after starting this YouTube channel, because I didn't realize how there are people on the internet who follow so intensively a particular creator's life. For example, I've had some people who have honestly analyzed me down to like the hair accessories that I wear, kind of creating these conspiracy theories about me. And I'm not even a huge creator at all. So I kind of thought initially that I would be a little bit immune. Of course, you have the trolls here and there that like to criticize housewives. That's just going to happen. But you can't always assume the best intentions of everybody watching. And for that reason, my husband and I have discussed a little bit about how we want to keep our son more so private. I do still want to include him, of course, because becoming a childless homemaker transitioning to a stay-at-home mom homemaker is going to be just the reality of my life. But we've discussed things like perhaps not sharing his name or not showing his face as much, those kinds of things. I'm going to really take it step by step, because I've also noticed that there's been a large conversation around including children on YouTube as well as Instagram, social media, and I really am for kind of not including children so much on social media, because they are so vulnerable, because they can't exactly give consent. And I'm particularly sensitive to this topic because I did mention once in a vlog, so if you've been here a long time and you've watched all my videos, you might remember me talking about this, but I had essentially like an in-person / contacted me through the internet stalker situation happen to me in university. And so I don't want to put my children in a position where they could be vulnerable to the same thing when they don't even know what's going on. So to dwindle it all down, yes, I'm going to include my children, hopefully we have more than one, on my social media platform, but it might not be as much as other creators. And on that note, somebody asked me about baby names that I enjoyed, but I'm not going to use. And I have to admit to you that we already had the names picked out for our children before we even conceived. That was something that we talked about just for fun after we got married. And since I might be keeping his name private, I can tell you though that his name is an Old Testament name. I talked in one of my previous videos, my my life update video that I've been getting signs throughout this pregnancy because I've had a lot of anxiety. You know, as much as I have come on the internet and have said that I love being pregnant, which I do love being pregnant, even though it's getting to the stage where I'm more so tired and it's physically difficult, I feel like this experience is one of the most amazing things that women can go through, and I hope that all women who want to go through it are able to. But the biggest challenge for me, which was also another question that somebody asked me throughout my pregnancy, was the anxiety factor because I had had a previous loss. I am still anxious every single day. You hear horror stories about women experiencing loss later on in pregnancy, and me having just been sick, having gone through something like that, this is something that is always on my mind and is something that I'm very fearful about. So I've really immersed myself in prayer. And I know that, you know, God is not just a genie in the sky and he can't just give you what you want. We really have to take all the trials that we go through and not really use prayer as a wish list. But that's a little bit of a tangent. I have felt comfort through several signs that I have received, and one of them relating to the name of our child in the Old Testament. One day at the end of my first trimester, when I finally felt the courage and the strength to open up my Bible, it randomly fell to a page of his name. And so it brought me a lot of comfort. And there are countless other signs that have honestly just been so in my face. I feel like God knows that I'm such a stubborn person and I just write things off as chance. So a lot of these signs have just continuously come to me very directly, and I won't go into them right now, but that's all I'm going to say. So I kind of bounced all over the place. This is a Q&A unscripted. So I can't exactly give you a list of baby names that I loved but I didn't use because we kind of were dead set on like 2 for each gender. And a couple people asked me how many kids I want to have. And I would love to have as many kids as God gives us, but it was a little bit difficult to conceive, so I don't know what the future holds. I'm just going to enjoy the blessing that we've been given for now. And also, a couple people asked me about tips to try to conceive. So a good place to start if you are not seeing a naturopathic doctor, because I ended up seeing a naturopathic doctor, is it starts with the egg. But I would encourage you to actually go see a naturopathic doctor. I of course went to see an allopathic doctor as well. I got tests and ultrasounds and all those kinds of things, and I had a referral to a fertility doctor to investigate things more. Actually, the month that we conceived was the month that I didn't really need that appointment anymore. But the naturopathic doctor helped me a lot because there are certain supplements in the book, It Starts with the Egg, that aren't going to be relevant for everybody. You don't have to take everything on that list. So getting your own personal health profile will help you figure out what your body could use as an extra boost. You're also going to want to find out if you have any mineral deficiencies. I took a high dose prenatal vitamin and I'm still taking it right now just to compensate for the common deficiencies that many people have in North America. For example, vitamin D. Another thing is I did medical acupuncture. I know there's like 2 types of acupuncture. I did not do the spiritual type of acupuncture. I did the medical acupuncture with, like, my naturopathic doctor was medically trained to do that. Just because our personal decision was that we didn't want to go through the route of artificial fertility treatments. This isn't a commentary about what's right for your family and your personal decision. That was just our decision. So I was really trying to figure out all that crunchy stuff that I could try to do to maximize my chances to get pregnant naturally. And one of the biggest things that I found that I did, which helped me the month that I conceived, was I got to a point where I finally accepted what my life would look like if I was a childless homemaker for my entire life. I think there's a big mental roadblock that you have to go through when you are trying to conceive. It's easier said than done because now I'm in the position where I've achieved that goal, but there will always be something as a woman, as a homemaker, that you're not going to have, and you're just going to think that your life would be better if you had said thing. But there's beauty in every stage of life, and to really accept where you are will give you the maximum joy. A couple people asked me if I had cravings in pregnancy, and my first trimester, a lot of people have the nausea. I would have that occasionally at night, but I was ravenously hungry, as if I was a teenage boy. That's how it honestly felt. I had specific cravings for certain things, particularly McDonald's breakfast. I shamefully ate so much McDonald's breakfast in my first trimester. And then in my second trimester, my appetite just went back to normal. That's usually when people have cravings, but for me, it went back to normal. And the bulk of the weight that I have gained so far in pregnancy was in my first trimester. So I didn't have that nausea where I was only eating crackers. I was out there eating like heavy duty beauty things. I didn't eat those particular things. That's when I would actually get sick. A couple times I tried to force myself to eat certain things that I wasn't craving just because my husband wanted it for dinner and I didn't have the energy to cook something else. And that was a bad decision because I got sick. I also want to go back a little bit to the whole topic of loss, or like people in your life that are trying to conceive, because if you're like me, you've really gotten to know a couple of people in your personal life as well as online that have been on that same journey. So when you transition to another phase of your life, it is a little bit difficult. So somebody asked me if I have advice for those who have experienced a loss or like a friend trying to conceive. And what I have to say, because I've been in both positions, I've been that friend and now I have to be the person that is there for those friends going through that, to just acknowledge their pain, acknowledge that it sucks, essentially, that it's just really, really hard and it's making me emotional right now. But don't try to fix somebody's problem. Because I have this online presence, I decided that I wouldn't be insulted if somebody offered me diet advice or like what so-and-so did that they knew got pregnant. But that's only because I have an online platform. Doing that to somebody who has experienced loss or is trying to get pregnant can really hurt their feelings, because chances are that they already know those resources. Because when you are so desperate to get pregnant, you do all the research. You would be a straight A student if this was a subject in school. You know what you're supposed to eat and what you're not supposed to do. So unsolicited advice to those people is just going to ruin the relationship, and it's probably going to make that person angry. When people would comment on my diet, for example, needing more meat or vegetables or whatever, like I said, I'm online, so I didn't take it as offensive. I thought that it was good information for them to leave down below for other women, for example, and I made the decision not to be offended by it. But if I hadn't been online, I would have actually gotten quite upset at people commenting on that, because it really indirectly feels like to that person that they are saying that you are not enough, that you are broken. A couple of people wanted recommendations on homemaking routines, homemaking tips, cleaning tips, femininity channels, and books that I recommend. And I've listed some on my blog. I have to update that. But if you go through my vlogs and my previous Q&As, I have listed a couple of resources. Every time I put out a vlog, I do try to share resources with you, because the purpose of me really being online, as much as it feels good to, have your content be well received out there and to grow bigger and to have those number milestones, those things feel good personally, but the core reason why I'm here, sometimes embarrassing myself online, for your entertainment, is because I want a better future for my children. And what I mean by that is I don't want them to grow up in a world where women are put down for their femininity, where women who choose to live more of a traditional lifestyle are frowned upon, where it's just not even possible. Like, many women think that this is not even possible. Even before I decided and I kind of stepped into doing this, I did not really think that it was possible to live this life, and I didn't fully understand the power of my femininity until I competed in pageants and had the opportunity to see femininity harnessed for a purpose. So that's why in my vlogs I do like to share resources. And so the best bet, what you can do, is go through my vlogs. I do list stuff in the description box, so if you don't want to watch the whole vlog, you can do that. Like I said, I'm going to try to update my blog and list those resources that I have mentioned before. But yeah, I truly think that it's important for more women to get this message out there. Kind of goes along with another question that somebody asked me about how I deal with negativity online, because I have talked about how, for example, TikTok trolls kind of trickle down to my channel, or they leave very hateful comments on my Instagram, or people do that on YouTube. And I think this is a valuable lesson in criticism, because somebody also wanted to know more tips on how to deal with criticism for living an alternative lifestyle, such as this, being a feminine woman or a housewife. And I did make a video on criticism, and I do address it in previous Q&As as well as other videos here and there. But I've also come to learn and evolve the notion that a lot of people have their mind made up already. There are people that won't change their mind, there are people who sit on the fence, and then there are people who are open to various perspectives and they they just feel at peace. And with the negativity going on in today's world, we have so many people who are shifting towards the version of people who have already made up their minds. So in that sense, the best thing that you can do is actually kind of cut yourself off from conversations where those topics would come up, or entirely cut yourself off from those people if you have to. And so that's kind of how I approach my YouTube channel, for example. You know, I've been bullied before in the past. When I was middle school age, it was kind of pretty bad. You know, being in pageants, there's always been the odd apple who will trash you. And so I've developed a little bit of a resilience to understand that not everybody has good intentions towards other people, and that's just the reality of the world, unfortunately. You know, even when I started this channel, it's really sad because there's so much proof of me being this way for countless years, but I got a handful of comparison comments done intentionally to hurt my feelings. And I'm not going to say that those initial comments don't hurt my feelings, because I am human, but I do want to put a message out there and say that just because you're an adult doesn't mean that it's acceptable to bully other people and to put other people down. Keep in mind that a well-adjusted person will just see something that they don't like and they will just choose not to follow it, or they will choose not to engage with whatever it is they don't like, and then they will move forward. The biggest thing that was shocking to me was that a lot of these comments that I was receiving came from people who were fans of femininity content. And that in itself seems like an oxymoron, because if you truly want to maximize your femininity, you have to get out of that space of negativity, of hyper criticizing other people. And bullying somebody at any age is unacceptable, because to me, who's somebody who has developed a thick skin to that kind of thing, it might not phase, but to somebody else that could be detrimental. You know, they could self-harm themselves. And if you truly are a believer of femininity and nurturing other people, you have to be careful about what you say. That's also why I don't often answer comments when people ask me about other creators, my opinions of other creators, like the scandal surrounding such and such person, or like my views on hypergamy. Not because I don't have a personal opinion, but just because the work that the femininity revolution and, you know, the fancies, the feminine family, all those terms that I really think come under an umbrella, is so much more important than minor disagreements that we might have with people, or about the advice that somebody else might be putting out. So I didn't realize, going through all my questions on my phone, that I had so many pregnancy questions that I didn't necessarily address. The first one is if I'm scared about raising my child in the world filled with immorality. And I talked about this on this Instagram post a little bit, how yes, I am very worried about that. But one thing that I learned from my parents, and I thought they did a good job, of course I'm biased, was that they didn't necessarily shield us, my brother and I have a brother, from everything in the world, but they talked about it, and they talked about why it was wrong. And my dad in particular was a very good leader in the family when it came to using faith as a reference to get through hard times, or to judge what is right and wrong. People are interested in how I'm going to prepare my pets because I have chow chows. I have 2 chow chows and 1 samoyed, and the samoyed, honestly, besides the fact that he's very excited and that could be a little bit of an obstacle, he doesn't really care about small children at all. He doesn't really like go around them or anything. But my 2 chow chows have a reputation for not being that good with kids. I think that I did a pretty decent job with our chow chows. My husband was very big on training them when they were puppies to kind of put things in their face and to train them not to chew or nibble on things. There's a TikTok account that I've been following about how to introduce a baby to dogs, so I'm going to link that down below if you're interested. A couple of people asked me about my homemaking routine being pregnant and how I anticipate it changing after the baby is here. And I do have a video planned later on where I want to talk about this more in depth, particularly more so on the femininity side. But what I have to say is that pregnancy does take a toll on your body where you're not able to do things with the same stamina. So it's kind of a big mental shift of letting go and understanding that not everything can be perfect because you have that physical impediment. And there's also the mental energy. You know, you might feel more down when you are pregnant. As somebody who's prone to anxiety, I talked about this at the beginning of the video, but the biggest struggle, I guess, in pregnancy was the mental roadblocks and the motivating myself, because usually I'm a type A person who can motivate myself to do a lot of things. So I've really had to discipline myself to step away from social media and to do things for my mental health. And I think that same mentality is going to carry me through into the 4th trimester, which is when you have the baby. So a big thing that has helped me keep the house clean now, that will help keep the house clean later, which will also help me with separating and training the dogs, is that I have baby gates at the bottom of the stairs. So the whole upstairs area usually doesn't get the dogs here. Long story short, just taking those kinds of shortcuts. I've also been focusing on like mom meals. I've seen a TikToker refer to them as mom meals, simplistic meals as mom meals. That's what I've been focusing on, just not overburdening myself and trying to lower my standard of homemaking so that it can be the same when the baby comes here, so that I don't just feel completely drained because I can't have that perfect homemaker lifestyle that perhaps I felt like I was showing more so on my vlogs in the past. A couple of people have asked me where I grew up, where I live. Somebody also asked me, do I live in a place where people judge for my lifestyle, being a housewife? And yes, I do. Where I live in Ontario, Canada, in southern Ontario, I live very close to the United States. Like I can physically see the United States from my balcony. I felt like I had a unique perspective. You know, my brother and I would go to summer camp over there. We were constantly over there, but now we can't be because of the way the world is. So where I live, it's a little bit of a unique situation that we have a lot of Canadian cultural influence, of course, because we still live in Canada, but we have a lot of American cultural influence, and a lot of people go to university there, but they still live here, so they will like commute. And so many people, I would say probably like 3/4 of my friends growing up in school had their parents working in the US, and a lot of them were dual citizens themselves. So all that being said, I just want to give you kind of like a perspective of where I live. And so it's really interesting to see the different mentalities of both countries because they are similar, but they are different. And that being said, the level of criticism that you're probably receiving in the northern parts as well as like East Coast parts of the United States would be similar to what we would be receiving here where I particularly live in Canada. So yes, it's very judgmental. Not a lot of people do it. There's of course the big impediment here because our real estate is more expensive. Now, it wasn't always that way. It was actually very cheap several years ago. The first house that my husband and I bought here was very cheap, but now not many people can do it. And there's a frustration with people who want to be able to do it. And I also kind of feel like I'm a mix of many different mentalities because my parents moved here for my dad to work, but they are not from here at all. So I don't have family here. My mom is from the French part of Canada, and then my dad is from the West Coast, and the West Coast would be more so traditional. My dad comes from Protestant, German, and Dutch people, and a lot of them went into Mennonite and traditional communities as well as very Christian communities. That's where like the Lowen name comes from. I don't even use my married name on the internet, so that's kind of what inspired me to perhaps not share our son's name, just because I really want to keep people in my life private. If you search hard enough, you will be able to find my husband as well as my married name. But if you know anybody who is from Canada or the US that biologically is in the Lowen family tree, chances are that we are related. Funny story, I met a photographer through pageantry who is actually distantly related to me, but my mother's side of the family, even though my grandmother had 9 kids, she was just very traditionally Catholic, and she was a full-time homemaker. In the French part of Canada, it is a little bit less traditional, so I do understand the perspective of that mentality also. So anyway, I won't continue to ramble on about that, but somebody wanted just more of a bigger picture. A couple of people asked me about getting married young and where I met my husband. I did talk about that in my previous Q&As, and I did make a video on young marriage. Isn't my favorite video to rewatch? I always feel that way about my old content. I still cringe. Even I bet you a couple years down the road when I look at this video, I might even cringe. But I still think that you should watch those videos because I have points in there that are valuable no matter what. But somebody also asked how I found out that my husband was the one for me. And I honestly knew pretty early, and I had dated seriously other people in the past, but I had never felt the way that I had felt until I started dating my husband. So it's so cliche, but it's kind of one of those things of when you know, you know. I would have married my husband so much sooner, but if you are somebody who gets married in the Catholic Church, you know that you have to at least have like 6 months because you have to do that marriage preparation course. So I planned our wedding in less than a year, and it's funny because our church, I basically told them that I will take any day. If I have to get married on a Tuesday, I will take it. You know, if I have to only have 10 people because I'm getting married on a Tuesday in the middle of the day, I will take it. I just want to get married to this man as soon as possible. And a couple of people don't necessarily believe this, and I don't know how to convince you of this, but when we got married young, it pretty young here. I was 22 years old. My husband's a little bit older than me. We pretty much had nothing, but it was so worth it at the end of the day. I find that so many people have this mentality that like they need to wait to be extremely financially prosperous, or they need to achieve certain goals before they get married. And of course that does ring true in a certain sense. You don't want to be in a very bad place when you get married. What I have found growing up in my 20s, approaching my 30s, is that life just gets harder. You think it's going to get easier the more money that you make, but it just gets harder. And your 20s are such transformative years that if you do find that person, it can be worthwhile to go through those transformative years together, because if you really focus on your relationship, you will grow more together rather than apart. Of course, the statistics say otherwise, and that's because I believe that a lot of people let those things break them apart, and I don't want to blame people who that has happened to. You know, I'm not putting the blame on anybody who has gone through a separation, but if I reflect back on it, those are just the things that worked for us, trying to really change together and not thinking that your way is necessarily the best way and trying to find compromise. Somebody asked me about having a more feminine sounding voice, and I did address this in a couple of videos, and I made a video a long time ago, how to conversation feminine tips, sound feminine, something like that. I will link it down below. But if I had to tell you one thing, it would be to hum and to sing, and to also understand that your voice isn't necessarily going to be the same with everybody. I noticed that when I have tutored children, my voice has had a higher pitch. I noticed that when I hang out with my friends, I have a lower and a deeper voice because I'm more casual. I've noticed that over time, as I have felt more comfortable on camera on YouTube, my voice has gotten higher and my hand motions have perhaps gotten a little bit more all over the place because I felt more relaxed. So I tell this to you just to give yourself a little bit of grace that you might not have the same sounding voice for every situation in your life, and that is totally okay. And if you want to just elevate your voice a little bit more, perhaps have a more feminine pitch or a softer voice, singing really will help you. I actually trained in singing. I did musicals, theater. That's what I did as my talent for pageants. And so you don't have to be a naturally good singer to do like vocal exercises, for example. You can find those on YouTube, but they're really going to help give you that versatility in your voice. A couple of people asked me about feminine style, and so I have a couple videos also on that. I feel like a broken record. Watch my other videos, but I do think that you'll get the full package of what I'm trying to say if you watch those videos. But the short description of what I want to tell you when it comes to feminine style, or you don't know where to start, is to be very simplistic. Like even just purging your closet, kind of going back down to a capsule wardrobe, will probably help you, because you'll be able to really analyze every piece and how they make you feel as you're wearing them. I've really noticed that with pregnancy. You've seen me wear kind of the same things, even like this cardigan over and over again. I've worn this dress before, and I've really been able to reevaluate what I like on my body. I've cut out so much clothing. If you follow me on Instagram, you will see I had bags and bags and bags of clothing, and that wasn't just because they didn't fit me because of pregnancy. It was more so that being pregnant made me analyze the things that I was wearing and the things that I liked and that I wanted to prepare in my wardrobe before our child got here. And a lot of people in the feminine community advocate for dresses, and of course a dress will make you instantly look more feminine. But I think that the more practical purpose of advocating for dresses is that it's just one piece that will help you step into having a more feminine wardrobe, because you don't have to have that added stress of deciding what can be layered and look good together. A couple of people asked me about if you like being a homemaker when you work full-time, or how to preserve your feminine energy when you work full-time. And what I do want to tell you is that you need to have like a transition cue, kind of like Pavlov's dog in psychology. I used to do this in university when I worked jobs, and trust me, I worked some not great jobs, like stressful jobs where people would insult you, those kinds of things. I worked those jobs. And so if you work in stressful environments, you have to give yourself cues for when you're going to transition into a more feminine energy when you go home. Perhaps it's putting on certain music. I would go and get myself a coffee, and I would sit with my coffee in my car for a couple of minutes and just remind myself to calm myself down, to really try to not necessarily meditate, because I don't do that, but those relaxation techniques if you have anxiety, like tensing certain parts of your body, letting them go, putting on an apron when you get home so that you can transition into that role will help you. And then I always get asked this question every Q&A that I do. It is about how to meet like-minded women. And I wish I could tell you that I have cracked the code to doing this, but I have not. Like I kind of described a couple minutes ago about where I live, it's not necessarily a common thing to be a stay-at-home parent, for example, or a housewife, but I have met a couple of women along the way locally. And one of the biggest ways that I have been able to do that is to kind of look in mom communities. Like even if you're not a mom, those online mom communities, they tend to have events. And I found that the things that they talk about or the events that they suggest aren't always things where they bring their kids. They're just like a bunch of moms talking about random subjects, not always their kids. And of course there's the online community, which is one of the biggest reasons why I started my YouTube channel, besides the fact that I wanted to promote this lifestyle to other people. I've made some pretty good friends that I hope we will meet soon. Some of you live in the US, but very close to me. I could drive to you. So maybe someday when the border opens up again, I can actually visit you because we've talked about some meetups, for example, of a couple of us in this general area. And lastly, I feel guilty that I can't get to every single question, but one that I promised to talk about more so, and one that I have gone a lot on, has been my faith, and talk more about my faith. And so I mentioned my different family. I have my Protestant side of the family as well as my Catholic side of the family. I am a currently practicing Catholic, and I am a cradle Catholic as well. I was baptized Catholic. So you're not going to find me on this channel really getting into the debate between both sides, because I'm well aware of the differences, but I'm not going to go there because the message that I want to portray on this channel when it comes to Christianity are the similarities that we all have, and the things that we can celebrate together, and the things that we can use to uplift each other. So when I was in elementary school and high school, went to a Catholic high school, I was decently involved. I was always in choir. So you can catch me singing all those church songs that they still sing. But like most women, like most people, when I went to university, I kind of went away from that. I got very influenced by the world. It wasn't a top priority. However, there were always things that I clung on to. For example, trying to live more of a modest lifestyle, of course, speaking with God, praying, but I wasn't practicing in the sense that I actually wasn't going to mass at that time. But it was actually through having the experience of interacting with other people who were different denominations or who were just not Christian altogether, that I decided that if I was going to carry this title of myself as somebody who's baptized Catholic who went through the sacraments, that I should probably know a little bit more about what I am proclaiming. And for that reason, I spent a couple of months just really reading and deep diving and asking people questions and really looking at those controversial topics that a lot of people don't want to talk about. And a good place if you're looking to start, if you are a Catholic and you're on the same journey, is to go to catholicanswers.com. They honestly have answers to every single misconception that you could think of, but that's just a place to start. And it's okay to get opposing opinions as well. I'm not one for sheltering and not having discussions with people who are our brothers and sisters in Christ, but may not be in the same denomination. But you won't find me talking about those kinds of things on the internet, for example, because that's just not a place where I think it's the best environment to discuss those things, because people really have a lot of emotions surrounding their own personal points of view. And this is for any Christian out there. I wanted to tell you that the biggest thing that changed my mind and led me back to where I am today is asking myself if I was looking for a warm hug from people, or I was actually looking to be convicted in what I believe in. And that doesn't need a fancy environment. And it isn't always about the people that you meet, the people that you sit next to in the pews at church. This is about your relationship with God and going to the place that makes you feel the most convicted and that makes you feel like you are having the truest and honestly, brutally honest relationship with God. And so again, this is a place where we're going to deep dive into Catholicism and all the nuances. So if you leave me a comment, or if you have left me a comment before about this topic, I probably won't get back to it just because I don't like people fighting in the comments section. I even had a couple of videos out on my channel that I took down. They weren't on, my faith, for example, but they were bullying another creator, or they were bullying other women in the comment section who were trying to get advice, or who were talking about their own personal experience. And I really want this place to be a community where we all come together. So I think that this has been long enough because my battery is flashing red. And I just want to say thank you so much. If you made it through this entire video, you are a VIP, you are a superstar, and you are my favorite. But anyway, leave your comments down below. I hope to do another Q&A video maybe after the baby comes. That would be really interesting because I think I would have more things to say about how I've evolved as a person in my femininity and my homemaking, etc. So hit the like button if you haven't hit the like button. Check out my other 2 Q&As. I've listed them down below, and I will see you in our next video. Bye bye.